Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we've got a special Instagram Live. We're going to be discussing pain and experiences around IUDs and just what that form of birth control looks like for different people. But first we're going to get Whitman-Walker in the room. We're going to introduce the space, and we have some really great guests to bring up and kind of share their experiences with IUDs thus far. What it's like to get them put in, what it was like to get them removed, why they chose to get them, and whatnot. But let's get Whitman-Walker in here, and then we'll get started. Welcome AO Photos, welcome Ruki Joy. Thank you all for joining. Whitman-Walker is almost on stage with us, but in the interim, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Whitman-Walker's Community Health Department has expanded its outreach efforts to include the social media platform. We cover various topics about HIV and STIs, to sexual health practices, access to care, social determinants of health, and public health interventions. The community health team is here to educate and support you. Let's see. We're up. So shortly we'll bring our speakers on stage to talk about their IUD experiences, and we will start with IL Photos 1. Cool. Welcome to the stage, Whitman-Walker. But yeah, we cover various health topics, including public health interventions, but overall, the community health team is here to educate and support you. My name is Jewel, and I use she, hers pronouns, and I work to bring educational Instagram lives to this space with Whitman-Walker's community health team. And today we're going to discuss IUD experiences and hear from myself and a few of my friends about what their IUD journeys have been like or are currently like. Before we get started, a little bit of information about IUDs. IUD stands for intrauterine device, and they run anywhere from $0 to $1,300, depending on what your health insurance covers, plus the cost of your doctor's visit and removal. IUDs are a different kind of hormonal birth control, but please note there's one form of the IUD that is non-hormonal. It's called the copper IUD because it's made out of copper. IUDs are T-shaped medical instruments that are inserted into the uterus by a doctor, and they release a small amount of progestin, which will stop ovulation and therefore make pregnancy impossible for 3 to 7 years at a time. If you do decide that you want to get pregnant, you can take out your IUD and start trying to get pregnant immediately afterward. There's no wait period or downtime. You will return to what your fertile or pregnancy planning abilities are beforehand. But yeah, so I am going to bring up our first guest. First up, we've got IL Photos 1, aka Eva Woolridge. Just accepted your request to join. And we'll wait for Instagram to catch up.
Hi. Oh my gosh. Hey, Jewel.
Hey, Eva. How's it going?
Great. I'm up in a cabin upstate.
I'm jealous. How's the foliage out there?
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's like the height of the fall season, or when the leaves start changing. So I feel pretty excited. And I'm by a fireplace. I had to have this be here. Hopefully my hair is higher though.
Well, I love the background that you've chosen. I love that you're amongst the foliage and experiencing the wonders of fall. And I'm jealous that I can't be there with you. But thank you so much for coming on to Instagram Live today to talk about your IUD experiences. Before we get started, can you introduce yourself to our listeners today?
Yeah, my name is Eva Woolridge. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an award-winning photographer based in New York whose work focuses primarily on reproductive health and the feminine energy experience. A little bit about me.
Well, thank you for blessing us with your presence today. Very excited to hear all that you have to share. So to kick us off, we are talking about IUDs today and what people's experiences have been in terms of getting them removed, why they wanted them. But what made you want to first get an IUD?
So I've been on birth control in general since I believe I was 16. I definitely wanted to use it to control a lot of my hormone changes with PMS. But I've always had such a untrustworthy experience with the hormones of birth control. I love birth control. I love that it's available, and I've been on pills for a while. But I was so sensitive to a lot of the hormones that were in birth control or the estrogen that it made me very emotional a lot. and highly depressed. So I was going through stages of not being a frequent birth control pill taker. I would be pretty inconsistent when I would take it, which definitely did not help. And so I thought an IUD would be beneficial because once you get it in, you don't have to worry about it for, a few years prior, what you said, 3 to 5 years. So I thought it would just be an easy solution. And I still battle with like whether or not I should use or get one even now because of just like how our bodily autonomy is like, threatened. So um,
That
that
part.
was at least many reasons why I wanted to be on it back in 2018, I believe.
Mm. And I remember back in 2018, you and I actually got our IUDs like days apart or like a week apart. Unplanned. But from what you shared, I had a similar experience. I was on birth control pills. Um, I was fortunate that the ones I took weren't like affecting me too much emotionally or anything, but I had had my experience with pills that just threw me off, and I had to kind of go back to my doctor and say these aren't working for me. Um, but yeah, similarly, I was like, I'm not taking these pills at the same time every day. My
Mhm.
period's out of whack. It's off schedule, and I'm like the most regular person ever. I'll talk about that more later on. But yeah, all of those reasons were like the IUD seems like the perfect thing to get and put into my body so that I can avoid pregnancy, but also like regulate my period and my hormones and all of those good things. So how did you end up picking your IUD and what research did you do and how did you pick the one that you picked?
I went to my gynecologist. I'm a really frequent gynecologist, like attender. I like to go annually. I'm very serious about my reproductive health. And my gyno told me that gave me options that were pretty trustworthy. Like she was like, "This is very popular new IUD." I honestly forgot what it was called, but a lot of people are using it. These are statistics behind it, so I trusted her a lot. Still do, but she's no longer my gynecologist. But she I was like, okay, I'll just use this one that you suggested. I didn't want to do like NuvaRing or something like that because those were recalled, and yet I remember the advertisements so perfectly growing up. Like NuvaRing seemed like the new age kind of IUD, but then they recalled it. Um, same with Yaz, which was the birth control pill, which I was on, which is why I had such difficult times with birth control. That got
Heard,
recalled.
I've
Um,
heard terrible things about Yaz. I guess it's true.
excuse me, I'm kind of getting over a cold. Um, So yeah, I knew I didn't want NuvaRing, so I told my gynecologist that, and I expressed my fears behind it, which is having like low control of my hormones, etc. So she recommended one, and I was like, okay, cool. This is what I shall do.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that your doctor was able to, walk through that process and
Mhm.
provide the information that you requested from her so that you could make an informed decision. Not everyone experiences that. I
Yeah,
had a
for sure.
similar experience. I think I
I
had to
always
go.
encourage.
Sorry, go ahead.
I always just had to encourage people. Oh my God, we got a CHS shout out. That is so great.
Yeah, that's our high school. Everyone who isn't from where we're from. Um, but yeah, my doctor was super helpful as well. I think I actually had to go to two different appointments before I could get my IUD, and she like insisted that you had to go to like two educational appointments to make sure that you were, I guess, about this IUD life. So I went and I got approved.
That's nice. You won the test.
Yes, I passed. Um, how was getting your IUD inserted? What was that experience like?
Well, I was really preparing myself to have such an invasive procedure. I mean, they tell you that it kind of feels like the beginning stages of cramping or what's the word? Oh, COVID brain fart. Contractions.
Mm.
That it's like a light version of contractions when you get it in and you have to go to the doctor or the gyno in order to get it inserted. It wasn't as painful as I thought it would be, but personally, like that's just my body. I know it was very painful for other people, so it just really depends on like your size and everything like that. And when I I mean like your reproductive organ size and how much they can like, um, I guess, adjust comfortably. But mine wasn't too bad. I definitely prepared myself by getting like cupcakes after as like my treat, and I didn't really need it, but happy to I did it still.
Well, I'm glad that you had a smooth insertion process and that it wasn't too painful. I had a different experience, but I'll talk about
Really?
that later on. um, if you're open to sharing, how is getting, well, did you get your IUD removed? Do you still have it? And what was that process like?
Yeah, so I had a very unique experience with my IUD, but honestly, it might not even be that unique. I had it for a couple months, like pretty much 3, 4 months after I got it inserted. And I noticed that I was getting like the honestly the smell of like my vaginal canal smelled very different, and I was noticing that it would smell different. Now I wanted to get a hormonal one, so the difference between the copper and the hormonal IUD is sometimes the copper can cause a vaginal bacteria infection, and I did not want that to play risk to that, so instead I did get the hormonal one expressing low dosage. But yeah, I noticed that it was my like pH was off and like my body odor smelled differently. So I was getting kind of concerned about that. And I don't believe my periods were as consistent. And then I started spotting a lot.
Mm.
So I didn't think too much of it, but I kind of wish I did. And then all of a sudden, I started experiencing really bad um, cramps that I kind of honestly felt like a dull knife like pressed against my abdomen. I experienced that at a party, and I was even like projectile vomiting. Um, Thinking honestly, I mean, I was at a party. I was thinking maybe I was drinking too much, blah blah blah. But even before the party, I was like, my body is really hurting right now, and I feel nauseous, etc. But I ended up going home and having to take a bath and like I thought it was getting better, but 2 weeks later, I had to go to the hospital for those same physical pain, and I couldn't even get up. Like I was on my way to work, and I like fell to the ground. Um, and I ended up having a 8 centimeter cyst. So they called it like the size of a grapefruit. And I had that large size of a cyst wrapped around my right ovary. So I actually lost my ovary that day from this growth. And it was very traumatic. It was not, it was kind of a hard healing process mentally and emotionally. Even when you lose your ovary, your body has to readjust because there's different balances and hormones that occur biologically. So you will have like extreme feelings of isolation and depression, etc. So, and then also just like having your body like having your organ removed unexpectedly, that represents so much of what quote unquote a woman or a female is, when of course that's definitely not the case no matter what organs you have. um, that being said, it was just a very eye-opening experience that led to like me creating a photo series from it, which really gave access for other women to really reflect on their um, reproductive health and what microaggressions and neglect that they experience from doctors. But yeah, I'm not blaming the IUD, but based off of the series of events, it seems like the growth was associated with it. Speaking to my gynecologist, she told me that I went back on birth control because birth control itself is a contraceptive that stops any growth from happening on the ovary. Like it shuts down all production of the ovary. So when that happens, um, you can rely on a pill to do that, but the IUD does not do the same thing in terms of shutting down production of your um, ovaries. So, all that being said, I do think it's somewhat linked, but of course, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to like spew false information, but that's just my experience.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I think a big takeaway for me is the importance of us listening to our bodies and when it tells us the thing the first time, how soon do we, make plans to react and see what might be up with it. Um, but I'm glad that you were able to get to the doctor when you could and that they were able to help, and wish that the process could have been a bit more smooth, because I feel like I heard a tint of Black women's health experiences in there as it
Yeah,
relates to healthcare.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that, when I was in right before surgery, they were telling me that this was like the sixth cyst that they dealt with that week. And I'm like, it's only like a Tuesday or something. Like it's such a frequent growth. And yet there doesn't seem to be that much information on where it comes from, or why that is. And like, we're honestly the generation to see the impact of birth control,
Mm-hmm.
when we started at like 16 onward. And so it's just worth like exploring. I think there should be a more focus on studying reproductive health as it relates to the birth control methods that we have, and just see what's happening with it. Like what, and I'm sure there is, but it happened to me. So
Well, hopefully we see some studies come out soon and they tell us what's happening to our bodies after decades of use of birth control. Because we need to know and we deserve to know. What would you say to someone?
girl.
Was that your cat? Um, what would you say to someone who's thinking about getting an IUD, and do you think you'd get one again in the future?
I would I would advise someone to trust their body. It's not something to be afraid of. I definitely just think that they should continue to actively do research, not only do their own research, but get their doctor's opinion on the matter. And then maybe if you need more information, getting a second opinion. Um, Again, I'm not going to be like, don't get an IUD, because I don't think it may have been the direct cause of what happened with my ovary. I just know that I don't want to risk that again, since I only have one ovary. And honestly, I'm queer, so I'm not really having as much sex with, or have that much threat of getting pregnant. So I'm not really prioritizing that kind of contraception, at the moment anyways. So I recommend really considering what the reward is, as long as you're prioritizing your health, your decision, and how your comfort level on it, and not being pressured by other people. um, those are my like 2 cents on the matter.
Well, a great 2 cents to leave the audience with. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Eva, for sharing your time and expertise and experience with us. And so cool to be in the midst of an award-winning photographer.
I'm, well, I mean, I'm gonna plug that I'm making a documentary right now on the, um, history and influence of Black birth workers. So my reproductive health journey has not come to an end. And if you're interested in learning more, you can message me on my Instagram. We're also fundraising for the post production of this film, because we already created the information, and the film. So we're just trying to finish production. So if you're interested in learning more, just DM me or DM Jewel.
Yeah, and I'll send you her way. The film looks beautiful and can't wait to see it on all of the big screens.
Yes, thank you so much, Jewel, for this.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna bring on our next speaker. Bye, Eva. Thank you. We're gonna bring on our next speaker, and we've got my other bestie, Michaela, coming up. I'm blessed to have all my best friends on the space today. We're gonna get her up here shortly, but wow, such great information we just heard from Eva, just in terms of the importance of listening to your body, the importance of making sure you go to the doctor and get whatever's happening checked out, the importance of knowing that you know your body best, and no one can tell you otherwise. So cool. And we've got Michaela coming to the stage. Hi, Michaela. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so
Good
much
to
for
see
joining us
you.
today.
Of course.
Do you mind introducing yourself to our audiences?
Yes. Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm here to talk about my IUD experience. I've had it for a while now, so excited to share.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michaela. So to start off, what made you want to get an IUD?
So I got my IUD because I was in a relationship at the time and I didn't want any surprises. So I decided, and I'd been on birth control like way, way back in the day, like in college, but I came off it because it was making me really emotional and things like that. So yeah, I pretty much just I pretty much just got one at that point.
Mm, sounds like a great time to get it.
Yeah.
um, Sorry, I just saw someone in the comments. Yeah, sounds like a great time to
Same.
get it. Pregnancy prevention and planning and not having surprises is always an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
What research did you do and how did you pick your IUD and why did you land on that one?
So I actually saw a commercial for one. I can't even remember what it was called, but they were like, "Oh yeah, it's smaller, so you should try this one." But it's interesting because when I got to the doctor, they were like, "Oh, that one's expensive. You should get this one." So pretty much like based on insurance, they just recommended me another one. I was like, okay. So ended up with Liletta.
Liletta, okay.
Yeah.
Um, how was getting your IUD inserted? How was the experience?
It was good. It was like it wasn't very painful. I feel like they told me that I had to come in like at a certain time, so I had to go when I was menstruating. So
Mm.
I went there and pretty much it was pretty smooth. It did feel like kind of weird afterwards, but pretty much the next day I was good to go.
Nice. I love that you and Eva have had such painless or light pain experiences.
Yeah, I've actually heard like really bad ones, but yeah, so it was lucky.
Yeah. Oh no, I think I wouldn't say that mine was super painful or painless, but I think on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a solid 7.5.
Yeah, that's high.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pain.
Um,
My
and they didn't have me going on my period, but I feel like they timed it around my period because I think you are like dilated to an extent from
Yeah,
having a period, so your cervix is a bit more open for them to go and insert the IUD in.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
in theory supposed to be less painful.
Right.
um, so and I'm not sure. Do you still have your IUD? Did you take it out? If you
Yeah, I
you still
still
have
have
yours.
mine, so I got it. It's actually gonna be like 5 years. So the one that I got was every time I would go, because at first they told me it would only last for 3 years. And then I would go to the gynecologist and they'd be like, "Oh, now it's like 4 years." And then now it's up to 6 years. So next year I'll have to get it replaced.
Mm. Well, don't we love that science in real time?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you dodged two bullets so far.
Yeah.
um, and how has your experience been with it having it for 5 years? I think I had mine for about 4 years.
Yeah, it hasn't been bad. Like I usually when I go to the gyno, they'll like check it out, make sure it's like in the right position and things like that. So it's been I think that the first couple of months it was kind of weird getting used to it. Like, it kind of changes your cycle and things like that. So I did it did take some getting used to, but now it's pretty much I hardly even like notice it.
Mm. That's great.
Yeah.
Like another part of your body.
Yeah, exactly.
um, I guess my last question is, what would you say to someone who's thinking about getting an IUD, and do you think you get one again in the future? Are you planning on re-upping your IUD?
Yeah, so I would say for a person that doesn't always like remember, there's also like so it like to take regular birth control, there's so many options. So I think it's like I based on my experience, I would tell somebody to explore it. But yeah, like everybody's body is different. You never know how it's gonna like react. So maybe definitely I would say like talk to your gyno because they'll definitely know. They've been seeing you hopefully for like a while now. And then but I would definitely get it again in the future. It just seems like the easiest one, and I'm all about simplicity.
Yes, life of ease.
Yes.
Any final thoughts to share with our listeners before heading out today? But thank you again so much for being here and sharing your experience and your expertise and just spreading the knowledge of IUDs to the people.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I just I hope that it was helpful, and let Jewel know what you guys end up deciding.
Yeah, please DM me. I'm gonna go through a list of IUDs after this and the different types and like how long you can keep them in. So if you end up choosing one from listening to this live, please DM myself or at Whitman-Walker because we definitely want to know where you landed and why.
Awesome.
But yeah, what's up, ACCD Sound? Thanks for joining. But yeah, thanks so much for being here, Michaela. So good to have you on. And then we've got one more person to bring up to the stage after you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. I don't know how to.
I think there might be like an X button that should.
Oh, okay. I'll see
Okay.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. And then we've got one more person coming up today to talk about their IUD experience. Let me get them in the room and we'll go from there. Hello, B. Thanks for joining. And sorry, I didn't think about the time difference.
Okay, I didn't either. I totally forgot.
Oh, it's so good to see your face. How have you been?
I've been good. Been good. I'm in my second trimester pregnancy now, so I'm feeling a little bit better than I was.
Congratulations on making it to the second trimester. I know that's a big milestone for couples. So so excited for you and your partner and can't wait to meet your bundle of joy in the future.
Thank you.
Do you want to take some time to introduce yourself to our guest?
Sure. So my name is Brittany Bohr. I go by B. You may hear my dog playing in the background. Sorry about that. I am, I was a roommate of Jules a while ago. That's how I know Jewel. And now I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm a high school science teacher.
A super cool high school science teacher, might I add. Thanks so much for being here, B. Really good to have you in this space and to bring a different perspective to the space. Someone who has gone through birth control and pregnancy prevention and is now pregnant and in the second trimester. But to start off, what made you want to get an IUD?
So for me, it was primarily, I've always struggled with my periods. I've had really, really awful pain in my periods, and a lot of bleeding. My periods lasted a really long time. And so I primarily wanted to get an IUD because I was hoping that it would help with kind of my period experience. I did also have a partner who I'm now married to at the time. So like pregnancy prevention was a huge part of that too. But I would say primarily it was definitely the hormonal part, like balancing my hormones. And also, I am very forgetful. So, I've been on birth control since I was 10. I started my period when I was really young, and I have endometriosis. And so, I've had to cycle through birth controls because they sometimes stop working for you over time. And I am just really forgetful. I'll forget to take my pill in the morning. And so I was like, well, you get it one time and then you don't have to remember anymore.
Yeah, those were like all of my main reasons for changing over as well. Like I wasn't taking my pill at the same time every day, and then I decided to do the NuvaRing for a bit, but even that was still like I've got to do too much scheduling and removal and insertion, but I can just get an IUD. So how did you go about choosing your IUD, and what research did you do to pick the one that you picked?
So I got mine in 2016, and I only knew about, I think, 3 or 4 options at that time. And I knew I couldn't get the copper one, because it's not recommended for people with endometriosis. It can cause more bleeding. So I did do research about the copper non-hormonal versus hormonal IUD. And so basically it was down to these three hormonal options. And from there, I just talked to my doctor about it. He said they were really like comparable. So we just ended up going with Mirena.
Oh, nice. That's the one I got too. And then just dial it back. You mentioned getting your period at age 10. I got mine at age 11. I think my sister got hers at age 10, but I know that our bodies are like being natural and stuff, but it's so crazy to think that you start this period journey and like, being able to be pregnant journey as young as age 9 or age 10 or age 11. And, have to start taking birth control that soon, depending on what your mental health experience is like. Like I also had terrible periods. They were super heavy. They were super painful. And I had to go on birth control to not feel like I was confined to the house for the week. So interesting how long this mental health journey can be.
Yeah.
um, so you had done yours for pregnancy prevention at the time. How was getting your IUD inserted? Was it painful? Was it painless? How was setting up the appointments and all that good stuff?
So setting up the appointment was easy. I just did it with my general practitioner doctor, who also did like OB stuff. And it was for me incredibly painful. I'm always really happy when I meet women that it wasn't like really painful for.
Yeah.
He, we kind of decided, so we set up the appointment. I was like sort of having second thoughts. I didn't take any pain medication at first because I was like kind of nervous and I didn't know if I was gonna get the IUD or not. I was just really nervous about it potentially being painful. And then last minute I was like, okay, no, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get it today. So I had no pain medication, so I know that was partially something to do with it. Yeah, it was very, very, very painful for me. And it really never stopped being painful after that.
Mm. Like after the insertion?
Yeah, after the insertion for about like 6 months, I had cramping that was like so painful that I would not be able to like stand up straight, or walk. Which was really, really wild. And a lot of doctors told me that was normal and that could happen for 6 months. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to power through this. But it never really went away.
Mm. Okay. Follow-up questions. I'm sorry that you were in so much pain. And I guess my follow-up question was, did your providers do anything else for you? Or what did they do after that 6-month period? And, if applicable, when did you get your IUD removed and how was that experience?
So I ended up having it for like 3 years and it still hurt pretty consistently. And I like sort of got used to it over time. I was supposed to be able to have it for 5 years, so I did get it removed early. And my doctors mostly, so I will preface this by saying they all identified as male. Every doctor that I went to at the time just would check that it was in place properly, that they could feel the strings and then say that it was fine. So that was basically that experience. They were just telling me like, oh, this is normal for some women. I also was getting my period frequently and like it was very heavy still, which is not typical as I understand it for the hormonal IUD. But I was also told that could be normal, and to just keep kind of going with it. So it wasn't until I moved to Kansas City and I went to a Planned Parenthood where I had a doctor who was a woman, who told me that like, no, none of this seemed normal. That yes, the IUD was in place and I wasn't, like there wasn't anything wrong. It hadn't perforated my uterus or anything. But she asked if I was allergic to nickel, and told me that some hormonal IUDs have a tiny nickel core in them. And I do have a nickel allergy. And so she thought that maybe that was what was causing a lot of my symptoms.
Was she right?
I think so, because as soon as she removed it, I mean, I was fine. So I had her remove it like a week later. And then everything was fine after that.
Mm. I'm sorry that it took 3 years uh, for the right doctor to come along and diagnose you. I know that can be so true for so many different communities, whether it's race-based or gender-based or what have you, in terms of just someone being there who understands some of your health experience and kind of knowing how to support in that way. But glad that you were able to get helped eventually. And for anyone who's exploring getting an IUD, I think this is an important takeaway that you should double check the ingredients and cross check with any allergies that you might have with your provider, just to make sure that you don't have three people who can't diagnose you, or multiple people who can't diagnose you when there's something that's going not as planned. Uh, Given all that you experienced and being so brave through it, and like, I can only imagine what that felt like. I mean, I read the statistic the other day that was like, oh, people who have cramps are experiencing miniature heart attacks in their womb all day. So I can only imagine. Yeah, it's so crazy, right? And we've just been going through life just with these miniature heart attacks.
Oh,
But so I can only imagine what it was like having an allergic reaction in the same area. But, after all that's said and done, uh, what would you say to someone who is thinking about getting an IUD, and would you get one again in the future?
I'm still very pro IUD, even though I did have that experience. I think I would definitely make sure, my biggest advice is just finding a doctor that you trust, that listens to you, that like is going to believe you when you tell them that something is wrong, so that you can feel safe getting that IUD. And if something does happen, you feel safe that they are going to believe you and do something about it. So that for me is my like personal advice. I think is the most important thing. Um, so I would say definitely like making sure that you have an OB that you can trust, and not just for an IUD, but for any, for any doctor appointments, for anything really. So that to me would be the biggest thing. I would get one again in the future, especially now that I do have a doctor that I do trust, who I think would help me work through the options more, help me make sure that I'm not allergic to anything in them. I think I was shocked by how little we do know about what is in them, or like
Mm-hmm.
how little we're told about what they're made of. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, that's a really big deal to have something in an internal organ that you're allergic to. So, like, definitely making sure that you ask your doctor questions about that. Like, what exactly is it made of? Is there any risk for me with
Mm-hmm.
my history or allergies of having any sort of reaction like that? But I definitely think I would consider getting one again in the future once I've given birth. I've also heard it's much easier to have it inserted if you've given birth. So I'm like, tight. It won't be a time.
Oh, that's great, and makes perfect sense for folks who, I mean, myself, I had to be on the table and like getting my IUD put in and taken out to realize that this is where babies come from. Like, the pain that I couldn't register what it was that pain. So yeah, if you've already had a kid and you're looking to get an IUD, this is an exciting and less painful time to do so.
Yeah.
But B, thank you so much for sharing the space and for sharing your experience and giving folks and myself this valuable information about IUDs and allergies, and just making sure that you know what is going into your body and that your doctor knows what's going into your body. Are there any final messages or thoughts you want to share with our audiences today?
No, I think just thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that I could be on here and be a part of this.
Thank you. I'm honored that you could be part of this too, and it was so great to have you and Michaela and Eva in the space today. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya. So thanks so much, everyone, for hearing from some of my amazing friends about their IUD experiences. Just a little bit more information about IUDs before we close out. So during a hormonal IUD procedure, it's normal to experience cramping, dizziness, fainting, or slower heart rate. This is when you're getting your IUD put in. The hormonal IUD can make you stop having periods or make them much more lighter or irregular. And you might also experience side effects like spotting or cramping after getting a hormonal IUD put in. This should go away in about 3 to 6 months after you get your IUD inserted, but definitely check back in with your doctor if that's not the case. Um, you know, similar to B's experience, she was not feeling a-okay after 6 months. So definitely check in with your doctor. We talked a few times about copper IUDs from different folks, kind of weighing that as an option for their IUD. This is a non-hormonal birth control option. Copper IUDs work by deterring sperm. So essentially, sperm don't like copper. So when they run into it, they will swim in the opposite direction versus trying to go and fertilize an egg towards the copper IUD. So this keeps the sperm from meeting up with the egg. If sperm can't get into an egg, pregnancy cannot happen. So copper IUDs must also be inserted by a doctor, just like hormonal IUDs. Copper IUDs can actually last up to 12 years. Most of the hormonal IUDs last like 3, 4, 5, or up to 7 years or so. So just some side effects can include random spotting during early use, more cramps during your period, and heavier menstrual flows. So if you're a person who doesn't get a period very often and you want to regulate it more, copper IUD might be great for you. If you're a person like myself or B who had a very regular or very fruitful period, the copper IUD probably is not for you. But that's all dependent on what you would like for your menstrual health journey to look like and your pregnancy prevention journey to look like. Some people experience discomfort, including cramps, during or after the insertion process of a copper IUD and any IUD, but you can take ibuprofen to help with the short-lived pain. And there's 5 brands of IUDs that are approved by the FDA. They include the Mirena, the Skyla, the Liletta, and the Kyleena, which release hormones to prevent pregnancy. And finally, the Paragard IUD, which is the copper IUD, and it doesn't release any hormones, just the natural copper keeps the sperm away. But Skyla's release progestin hormone, and they should be replaced after 3 years. Mirena's release LNG and should be replaced after 7 years. The Liletta should be replaced after 6 years. And finally, the Kyleena should be replaced after 5 years. So that's a little bit more about IUDs. Hope you learned a lot. Hope you enjoyed hearing about people's IUD experiences and are able to make a more informed decision for yourself about what your IUD journey can look like or what your other pregnancy prevention journeys can look like. Before we go, just want to give a few reminders about HIV and STI prevention services available through Whitman-Walker. You can give us a call at 202-797-4439 to schedule an STI or HIV testing appointment at either their Max Robinson Center location in Anacostia or their 1525 14th Street location near Logan Circle. If your community or organization is interested in Whitman-Walker providing mobile health services in your neighborhood, you can contact Mobile Health at whitman-walker.org. Again, that's Mobile Health at whitman-walker.org. And you can also access HIV prevention tools like PrEP, PEP, and also start HIV treatment at their 1525 14th Street Health Center or their Max Robinson Center in Anacostia. Finally, please save the date for Whitman-Walker's 36th annual Walk to End HIV on Saturday, October 22nd. You can register to walk and or donate at walktoendhiv.org, and this year's walk will take place at Whitman-Walker's new medical home on the campus of St. Elizabeth's in Congress Heights. Also on October 26th, please join the community health team for a breast cancer awareness month event at Crazy Aunt Helen's from 5:30 to 7 p.m. 5:30 to 7 p.m. You can RSVP to Arcata at whitman-walker.org. That's RKEITA at whitman-walker.org. And also all month long, you can order a Booby Blossom cocktail at Crazy Aunt Helen's, as they will donate $1 for every drink sold to Whitman-Walker Health's Women's Health Department. Thank you for taking time to learn a little bit more about IUDs, where to get tested, and how to prevent HIV, as well as support the fight against HIV. Before we go, we want to give you a few reminders about COVID-19 and vaccines. If you've already gotten vaccinated, awesome. Congratulations. You've taken an important step preventing yourself and your loved ones and your community from getting sick. Multiple variants have soared across the US and just around the world, so it's understandable if you want to keep wearing your mask, as the vaccine is not 100% effective at preventing new cases of COVID-19, but it's very effective at preventing you from getting super sick with COVID, from having severe symptoms of COVID, from ending up in the hospital with COVID, or from having death related to COVID. Other than that, please stay alert and be mindful of folks who are around you who are not vaccinated. If you have not been vaccinated and you're looking for an appointment, Whitman-Walker Health has COVID-19 vaccine available. Please call 202-207-2480 to make an appointment. If you're a DC resident, you can also visit vaccinate.dc.virginia.gov or call 1-855-363-0333. If you're a Maryland resident, you can visit covidlink.maryland.gov or call 1-855-634-6829. And if you're a Virginia resident, you can visit vaccinate.virginia.gov or call 1-877-829-4682. If you haven't been vaccinated and you're not looking for an appointment, please continue to follow CDC guidelines about social distancing, mask wearing, and the like. It's very important that you consider getting the vaccine and discuss COVID precautionary measures with those around you, but also be mindful of masks and keep your distance, but especially when you don't know whether a person has been vaccinated or not. And then finally, because we've got one more public health pandemic going on, according to the CDC, there are more than 26,000 cases of monkeypox documented in the U.S. If you're in DC, you can pre-register for a monkeypox vaccine appointment at dchealth.dc.gov/page/monkeypox. Again, that's dchealth.dc.gov/page/monkeypox. Virginia and Maryland are working with their local health departments to contact, trace, and provide monkeypox vaccines. Maryland health departments just released a pre-registration system for vaccines. So you can also pre-register for an appointment if you're in the state of Maryland. And in DC, as of Friday, August 5th, walk-up vaccination locations are available from noon to 8 p.m. on Fridays or while supplies last at the following DC Health monkeypox vaccination locations. They're at 3640 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast in Ward 8, 7530 Georgia Avenue Northwest in Ward 4, and 1900 I Street Northwest in Ward 2. Walk-up vaccinations will be provided on a first-come, first-served basis to eligible residents who have not already received their first dose of the monkeypox vaccine. You are currently eligible to be vaccinated in DC if you're a DC resident who's 18 years or older, and this is any person of any sexual orientation or gender who has had multiple sexual partners in the past 2 weeks, including those currently considered highest risk, which includes folks who identify as gay, bisexual, or other men who have sex with men, transgender men and transgender women, or sex workers of any sexual orientation or gender, or staff of any sexual orientation or gender at establishments where sexual activity occurs, aka bathhouses, saunas, and sex clubs. Proof of residency is required prior to vaccination. So you can show an ID card with a DC address, a utility bill, or other piece of mail with your name and your DC address, or a current DC lease or mortgage with your name on it. Please remember to follow us or follow the Whitman-Walker team on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Whitman-Walker, and check the website at www.whitman-walker.org for the most up-to-date information on their services. And for more COVID-19 resources and general Whitman-Walker services, you can give them a call at 202-797-4439. Again, that's 202-797-4439. And follow some of their great programs in Whitman-Walker family at RealTalkDC_ and at NoFilterDC. Hope you have an amazing rest of your Wednesday. Bye.